Hello, hello, Ken. And
You guys
Brad.
are repping all the coffee shop swag.
Yeah.
Local coffee
local-
shop.
If you're not
The
watching this
neighborhood coffee shop, huh?
on YouTube, Brad has a cup that is our local neighborhood branded cup, and I have the
You can
local
say them. We love them, right?
branded neighborhood T-shirt, Highbrow Brew, Franklin, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Dustin, the owner.
Shout out to our friend Dustin who does a great job, makes a great espresso.
Express?
And is just killing it as far as his business, I think.
You say espresso?
Espresso.
Espresso.
Oh, espresso, right? Not X.
Espresso. Come on.
It's my espresso. I broke up with it.
Yeah, yesterday's
Cappuccino.
espresso.
Do you know what the word cappuccino comes from?
Cappuccino. Is it kappa or kappa?
It's kappa.
Like I'm from Detroit. When we say kappa, you're like you're gonna kappa.
It's
Kappa.
from the Capuchin monks in Italy way back in the day who actually, I don't know if they invented it or came up with it, but their habits or their clothes, whatever they are, that color. It's a dark brown.
Oh yeah, I know the brown.
Really?
Yeah,
I
so
didn't know that.
that's where the word cappuccino comes from.
Oh, man.
I did not know that.
Little piece of interesting, useless information that you may never use again. But every time you drink a
You know what?
cappuccino, you'll think of the Italian monks.
Bob,
the
I'm
Capuchin monks.
gonna go to Dustin at the coffee shop and ask him that. And
I bet
I'm gonna
he
look
knows.
like a superhero
I bet
when I
he
give
knows.
him that explanation.
Yeah.
I look like I actually know something.
Yeah. Speaking of knowing something, you had an interesting topic that we want to address today.
You know, it's funny. I was reading some other company agencies posted this thing about how to build a good email campaign that is, multiple email campaign, kind of a user journey to engage customers, and it was good. I mean, it was something that we would do, and it's, it kind of hit home. But then I'm looking at it closer, and I'm thinking to myself, man, this feels a little manipulative in the messaging. And I'm like, man, we do this all day long. We build these funnels and we talk about how to engage our customers' pain points. And then I looked at it from a different view and a different eyes. And I'm like, what if, they always say that your brand needs to have a relationship with your customers, right? And I'm like, well, if this was a relationship, this feels a little manipulative and kind of creepy in some ways. And I'm thinking to myself, it's like I've kind of seen it with fresh eyes. And today I'd like to kind of unpack that a little bit. Is like, can a brand be its true self? And can a product just stand on its own without having to feel like we constantly have to do things that will sell the product or say things that will sell the product or quote unquote manipulate people to get them to buy our product, and I think it's a challenging thing today, because I think we're finding that, with brands and companies, we all in ourselves, it's kind of it's an issue with humans too, is that we just want to put on a face. We don't ever want to show our true selves because we're in such a weird times where we're so, fearful of shame and presenting ourselves like you can't have any flaws and you have to, it just feels like a very manipulative world. Maybe I just had too much of this good
Cappuccino.
Cappuccino. I had too much of my espresso to it.
Yeah.
Espresso.
No, that is a great, and it's very timely because of what's going on with the Facebook files that were leaked and all of that as of late.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a discussion that's becoming more and more to the forefront with the cookies being taken away, and again, the Facebook files and data privacy. Everybody's going, okay, what does this marketing and advertising mean, and what are the ethics, or what should the ethics be behind it?
Yeah.
What are you thinking, Ken?
Oh, man. We've talked about ethics in marketing and advertising before. I think I think that's an interesting area, but we've discussed that. It's one that's not often discussed. Maybe it is. I mean, you used to be a professor in marketing.
Right.
Is that discussed in higher ed right now?
Yeah, I think always. I think what Brad might be alluding to is there's the ethics, right? There's the big E ethics that we all kind of try to say, all right, here's what we'll do and we don't do as a company. And a lot of that has to do with business ethics. Some of it has to do with our personal ethics. And we all kind of talk about what you're talking about is like little E ethics, getting to like is a customer journey, is a sales funnel in and of itself an ethical way to treat human beings, right?
And my point is, in asking that is, I don't know that ethics inside of marketing is even a thing.
Yeah.
It's almost up to the discretion of the person. And I think there's a lot of pressure in marketing and advertising today. I feel like more than ever, maybe Brad would disagree, to use manipulative tactics to get the sale.
Yeah.
And I think obviously, I'm a person of faith. So when I'm doing the marketing that we do, sometimes I am presented with, is this dishonest?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because I think a lot of marketing is very dishonest.
Yes.
And I'm not saying I'm not guilty of that at all, but it's something that as a human being, if I'm doing some, I've had those situations where I'm like, maybe I should do this or this, and then it's still being dishonest. So I have that check inside of me. I don't know if human beings have that check inside of them, or all human beings have that check inside of them. But the thing is, there's no real line, is my point. And so it's kind of up to people. And then when you go to brands, right? Marketing is just an extension of a brand, And I don't know. Do we talk about brands as too ideal? Because it's a company, it's a business. It needs to make money.
Well,
let me.
I think sometimes it gets so super on the soft and squishy side of, this brand is going to do this and this and this, and I believe in the power of brand, but should it be judged the way a human being would be judged?
Yeah. Well, I think so.
know.
Here's the deal. Let's talk about like email campaigns, for instance. There's a philosophy that when you get if you're signed up for a campaign, I'm going to send you an email every single day and sell you like crazy until you opt out. I want to force you to opt out because then I know who my real loyal customers are, who are not. So meanwhile, you've received 15 emails from me in like 3 days. And I'm like, that's called harassment. Like you get to the point, if that was a human being that was constantly coming up and knocking on your door and trying to sell you something constantly, came back 5 minutes and just knocked on your door again and started selling you something, the first five times you might be kind of nice to him. You might be, and after the sixth time, you're going to tell him to go take a hike, or you're calling the cops.
Here's the problem.
That's harassment.
Well, one of the problems is because I see, I mean, we all see this, right? But statistically, I think because there's so much noise in email,
correct.
You gotta I think you gotta email somebody at least twice a day for 7 days if you want them to do something. Some crazy stat like that.
But isn't that a little crazy?
It's insane.
Listen, if
it's
your
completely
product,
insane.
If your product or service is
and
good
I'm not
enough,
saying I do that or I believe that. I just think I've heard. I know those are statistics.
Those are statistics, and those are probably true. But at the same time, is it just because a human behavior is that? Do we have to manipulate that human behavior?
Well, so here's then I think the problem, right? The business is faced with, ultimately it needs to make a sale, right? So what is it? What is it? And I think one is short term, one is long term potentially, right? Like if you're degrading your brand, that's not a good short term. That's not a good long term strategy. It's typically at the expense of short term stuff. But anyway, that's the problem that everyone's faced with. And I think we get into some of the problem with business right now because most businesses don't have much, right? They're living month to month and they need to make those sales and they need to harass people in order to get their numbers hit. And they've got people above them that don't really care about the brand. They care about the numbers and they have to hit a budget and they have to hit all these different things. It
sounds like you're justifying this, Ken.
No, I'm not. I don't believe in it. I don't agree. I'm sorry. I don't agree with it. I'm saying I think that there are so many factors at play that that make it very difficult for there to be that true action from a brand standpoint.
So, I mean, one of the things that, we talk about a lot in our agency, and just so you know, we're guilty of this. So, and this is something I'm having.
No, you're not. No, you're.
Yes, I am.
Kidding.
I'm having a check right now in my spirit. So let me do that. Let me just kind of go in there and kind of try to stir the garbage up a little bit.
Oh, we're all guilty of it. I mean, it's
I know.
part of, it's very hard. I mean, how can you be successful at marketing without
capitalism?
That's what I like.
go.
That's what I love about this table here is that it's a safe place.
It's a safe place. No one's listening. Nobody's listening.
But I mean, one of the things that we talk a lot about is pain points, right? Let's talk about the pain points of our customer. Let's talk about really where they're at and what kind of solution that we solve. I love that idea, but I think there's a point in time where you're really looking for more vulnerabilities in a person and not really solving the problem. Does that make sense? Yeah. You're trying to figure out how there's a vulnerability there, and I'm going to go in there and sneak in there and pretend like I'm going to fulfill that vulnerability. I mean, that's how like kidnappers and things work. Like, it's a little creepy if you think about it. And I think it's the intent is that we can get so focused on the sale, so focused on the dollar that we really, and I think this is a challenge for every agency. We have to check ourselves. We get to the point where we're like, we know our customer's product or service isn't really solving that issue. It's addressing the issue, but maybe not really solving it. And if I have to knock on somebody's door 15 times for them to get their attention, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with either the product or service that it's just literally shouldn't be selling it, or something about the message or something about the appearance isn't correct.
Yeah. I think that
or is it the environment that we're in right now? Go.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think this is a great topic, Brad, and I appreciate you bringing it up. I do think we're seeing a shift in philosophy and mindset in the past 10 years, where brands, especially big brands, are starting to wrestle with this. So I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I'd start with, if you look at maybe the Super Bowl ads in the past several years, they've shifted from manipulation by our product, cute kind of ad that gets you interested in the product, to, all right, what's going on in the world? What's the human? And while it may be manipulative and pulling on heartstrings, it's less about the brand and it's more about the human connection. So, for instance, you have, Ford or Chevy, not really saying, hey, our truck's great. Here's our truck. You need our truck. You'll be more sexy if you have our truck. It's really addressing, like, during the Olympics, here's what a mom or a dad does for the Olympian. Here's how they spend their lives, and they sacrifice for that child to every week they give up their own time so that child can fulfill his dream and they can be a better athlete, whatever it may be. And kudos to parents out there that do that, sponsored by Ford, whatever. Some could say, well, that's manipulative. Some could say, well, maybe that's just, maybe that's being honest. Maybe it's being human. Maybe it's thinking and thinking about what it takes to become an athlete and all that human endeavor. So I think they're wrestling with this. Brands are wrestling with it. But at the end of the day, I think what we're talking about is, do you really want to leave? Do you have a double bottom line in your business? Meaning there's finances, money, and there's something else. Or is it just finances? Because some would argue, in a capitalistic society, business's main goal is to satisfy and the shareholders and make money. That's your only goal. None of this stuff you're talking about, Brad, matters, right?
Yeah.
That's one philosophy. The other philosophy is, no, I want to leave the world a better place. I have purpose in my life as a human being. And while I want to be successful and make money, I also have another bottom line, and that is to blank, whatever that might be. I think that's what we're really talking about, because I think you could talk to your blue in the face, and there's some people in businesses, all they care about is making money, right? And that's okay. That's the country, the freedom that we have. But I think also there are many of us, including myself, you, Ken, companies we work with, that says, no, we have a double bottom line. And it doesn't mean you have to be a nonprofit. It doesn't mean that you're out there, feeding the poor every week with your income. But it means that I'm going to leave. I talk about, restorative, business, restorative marketing, restorative meaning leaving things better than you found it. If you really genuinely believe that, that's got to carry over into your marketing and your communication. And like, is this email leaving this person a little bit better than when I first engaged with them? And I think those are the questions. Those are the hard questions that you have to ask yourself every day as marketers.
I think I completely agree with the double bottom line thing. I think that more businesses should do that, and I believe in that. But I also I think that at the end of the day, right, like a business, it is there to make money, right?
Sure.
So the two have to align.
Yes.
I think you know what I'm saying, right? Like unless it's a nonprofit, the two have to align.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would argue that it's really good for business to have a true double bottom line, or however you want to say it, right? To be there to matter in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think that when push comes to shove and a business is like, I either need to make my budget here, a lot of times in my experience, or and at the risk of that side of the bottom line, they pick that one, and probably not, maybe that's not necessarily a fault of theirs, right? That's why the business exists there. And I think what I've observed is, I think we've gotten to, so your analogy of knocking on the doors, it's more like there's 100 people knocking on your door every day, and some of them knock 7 times. You know what I'm saying? Like the marketing side of everything and the noise is leveled up, and so a business is left, or a brand is left to, okay, well, I believe in this. Even if they believe in this, the idea that they have another purpose or an additional purpose, right? I would say, well, how do I act that out and still stay in business?
And I think that's the challenge, is that if you look at a brand and customer relationship, it's not an authentic relationship. The brand isn't having a relationship because they want to. I mean, because it's because they need to.
Right.
It's because they have on the other end have to get $1 from that person, and so it comes already with a really awkward, really a wrong motivation, right? I'm going to try to get $1 out of you, therefore I'm going to try to get a relationship with you. If that was a human relationship, that would be a horrible relationship to get into, right? So you're starting off the bat with it's a bad relationship to begin with, for the most part, not always. I mean, I'm not saying that some brands have just as much of a goal of a relationship as they do the mighty dollar, but to me, it seems almost like it's almost an impossible thing to have this really authentic relationship. There may have been some brands in your life that they've done it because they've produced such a great product, or something that has just really changed your life. As far the value of them changing your life with a product has been worth it. But for the most part, most brand relationships are pretty one-sided, I think. Even our customers, and I hate to say that, but it's kind of true, And
it's hard not to be, and I don't believe that that's the best way. I'm just saying, if you look at, I don't know, would you argue that Apple is not that? I don't know.
It depends on who you talk to,
ask.
because I think what we're talking about here is very one-sided. What Brad is bringing to the table is, as marketers, as advertisers, as brands, as those who represent brands as company themselves. Now, what haven't brought in yet is the customer.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so people don't respond to ads. They respond to things that they're interested in. And if an ad happens to be that something they're interested in, they'll respond to it. So, as advertisers, advertising 101, you don't talk about your product. You don't push the product. You push and talk about the need or the want of the customer, right? So if I'm selling lawn fertilizer, I'm not selling lawn fertilizer. I'm I'm addressing the need and the want for my lawn to look good because of the peer pressure of I don't want other people in the neighborhood to feel like I have the worst lawn. I want to have a better lawn, or I want to win an award, or I want to look like I'm successful, or that my lawn is green. And I want everyone to know that. That's what you're appealing to, right? The lawn fertilizer gets a person there. So, how much of this is people need things and they want things, and brands and advertisers are there to communicate effectively. If you have to buy t-shirts, everybody wants a t-shirt. How can I communicate you want my t-shirt or you want my client's t-shirt the best because it is the best t-shirt? And, oh, by the way, I'm going to drive revenue for my clients. So there is a symbiotic relationship. Now you're saying when does it become manipulative, right? Like if somebody wants something and they need something, there's nothing manipulative about competing for our product is better. And let me explain why. And let's talk about that. That's good marketing and advertising. But at what point does it become manipulative, right? And I would say maybe it's manipulative when you're getting into that gray area of pushing things that people think they need and want, but they don't really.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm looking for a brand new pair of headphones, I'm going to do research. And if a brand tells me why theirs is better, that's what I want. I want to know why it's better. So if they're advertising or promoting it on their website or whatever like that, right? I want that information. I'm looking for it. But it's beneficial for me.
Is all manipulation bad? Because there are certain types of things that I'll just speak for myself as a customer, right? Mm-hmm. There are certain types of things that, again, most people would say that no one wants any product. They just want the result of that product, right? Mm-hmm. And there are certain types of things that the person may want the result for, but may not have the willpower to get or to do or to act on because there's pain involved in doing it or whatever. That may be a life change, whatever. And so I would, I would say like not all manipulation is bad. It can be used very badly, but if it's with the intent of ultimately helping the customer, sometimes, so like, a lot of times we have to be helped beyond ourselves to actually take action and do something.
Yeah. And I think your example.
So I think it's overused. I mean, but I do think it's not always bad.
Yeah. Let's talk about Apple. You brought that up.
And the reason I brought that up is not because it's the cliche example, but because I don't know of many other very successful companies that were based on a founder that didn't really care about money. They cared about changing the world with something.
Right.
And I know there are other people like that, but they don't become successful as often. Mm-hmm. Rarely do they become successful.
Elon Musk does that all the time. He completely bashes his own products. He's like, our software is not ready. It's like he's not like ashamed to say his failures. It doesn't seem like he's even cares about the money as much sometimes. But both these companies are doing something so revolutionary. They're building something that they're the only organizations who have this product. Like they're very blue water, right? They're building something that doesn't already exist. Mm-hmm. So because of that, they're already in a completely different era where they don't really do as much marketing and advertising.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I know Apple does have probably a huge advertising marketing budget, but compared to other businesses.
And if you take Apple as an example, I would, in my estimation, they have become more and more, their marketing has become more and more like other brands in the recent past because their products are less revolutionary not because I don't know whether they're doing their job or not, but other people have caught up, right? When the first iPhone came out, it was like, we don't need to say we're better than anyone else. Like clearly this is the best thing out there. And now when there's the iPhone and they're this and that and the other thing, they're all similar. Now we have to start being a little manipulative.
Again, manipulative. It's a little selfish because it's like, oh, wait, we have a waiting list for our cars. We don't want that. We don't want to have a relationship with you anymore. You come to us because we have a waiting list.
Sure, right.
Like they're not going to spend money when they don't need to, when they don't have a product to sell because they have a waiting list. They don't need to. So they're not having a relationship with the customer unless on their terms when they want it, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, if you take the name out of the brand and put a human being in there, right? there's some manipulation going on.
I just wonder if that ideal is something that can be achieved.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are you implying that a customer journey or a sales funnel that's well thought out with top of funnel, mid funnel content, retargeting, would you say the whole concept is manipulative, or can that model be used in an ethical way?
I just think it's easy for brands to take advantage. They don't know where the boundaries are. And I think that's so easy because their whole goal is to cross that boundary. Nobody's taught like ethics. They're not talking about some brands. I'm not saying this is for the but I'm just saying it's easy to go, okay, what's going to get person to the next level? How are we going to, get our, and it just feels, again, if it's a true relationship, it would feel very manipulative, and it's like, we talk a lot about pain points and things. And I mentioned this earlier, but like talking about a pain point, are we sure, are we actually sure we're not actually looking at what is their vulnerabilities?
Yes.
And let me take advantage of that vulnerability.
Exactly what it means.
Yeah, and I think that's a challenge sometimes. Is like we want to be empathetic. Like I think I'm a very empathetic person to our customer. I want to know how the product really solves their issues and I've seen it firsthand by products and services. So it's not like I'm a Debbie Downer where I'm like I've seen products and services that have really helped people, right? Save even lives in medical field and things. So, but where does it become where you're manipulating that vulnerability? And you're not really being true to that person. And so I think that's the fine line. And I think every agency may need to sit back and kind of reassess how they do things. And I know in my own heart, I have to do that. I have to sit back and go, okay, what am I really doing? Is this really a great relationship? And I think the more I see myself as I'm having a relationship, or our brand or our products are having a relationship with a human being, and I'm a human being having a relationship, would I do that in a real relation, human to human relationship? Would I do that? The answer typically probably would be no. Like that would be creepy. But so I think there's ways that you can kind of judge whether or not what you're doing is creepville or not.
Yeah, Carl Jung, who was a famous psychologist back in the early part of the 20th century, mid 20th century, he was the one that really came up with a lot of these archetypes. But he talked about you started this with the term the true self. He talked a lot about that true self and the shadow self. And I think maybe what you're touching on here is the shadow, that version of us as human beings that is how we learn to cope and function in the world. And specifically as children, we learn this. But sometimes it's big personalities. Sometimes it's not. But it's a shadow of who we really are. Like when we get alone and we're by ourselves, or we're at our best version of ourselves in that place, we know deep inside that is not who we really are, meaning we can mask it with all kinds of things. And I just wonder, this idea of being less of our shadow and more of who we truly are in advertising and marketing is something that we need to talk more about, look at, and even understand what that means. Because I think what you're starting to touch on, people might be listening and they might be like, okay, what do I even do with that? What does that mean? What does it mean to be ethical? Like how do I
think I know what it means.
Okay.
Like, I mean, there's little small ways, right? Like we all know, I mean, typically I think right now the honesty and the ethics are down to not just the brand, but down to like the marketer. And if you want to drill it all the way down, it might be down to the designer of the ad or something. Like they're not all, big giant companies like Apple. Like most of the outreach that you get is the volume of small companies, right? And there's not, a lot of, there aren't a bunch of checks and balances in most of these companies, because they're a small team. So I think it comes down to doing things like, if there are not 3 products left, you don't say 3 products left.
Right.
Or, whatever. Now,
You don't use scarcity if it's not scarce.
I wouldn't say you don't use it ever.
Right.
And this is where I do think it takes a high character human being to be behind this, because I think that it's gray. I don't think it's black and white necessarily. I think dishonesty is black and white, but I think you have to sometimes create scarcity to get someone to do something, right? And that's sort of a form of manipulation, and it can be used for the positive, for the negative. But on the whole, it's definitely overused, right? And we all know when we see. Now, I wouldn't. I'm in e-commerce, and a lot of times when there's 3 products left on a lot of the clients, not because of us that we work with, there really is 3 products left. But we all get to those pages where this is just typed in, right? It's not actually inventory. Right?
It's always there.
It's just always forever. There. And if you clear the cache, it goes back.
Or the countdown clock.
Yeah. It all goes back. We all know that type of advertising. I think that has gone out of hand. Whether it has or not doesn't matter. I think it comes down to the person, like being an honest person when you're doing something as very tactical as writing copy or coming up with an ad campaign. And this goes on the big level too, right? I think it's great that brands are engaging with the human side, but I'll also say that if that's not a true thing, it's very manipulative, maybe way worse, right? To say, oh, we really care about this thing, but we really don't. We just want you to buy a truck. And I'm not saying that that's the case. Right. But if that is the case, that's it too.
Well, I think the double bottom line is a real thing. I think you can have both.
Oh yeah.
And it's hard, right? Because you have Steve Jobs who said, I don't really care about making billions of dollars. I just want to change the world and make the best computer experience and make humans better with technology, right? I think that's what his original intention was, right? And I think Elon Musk lives in a 400 square foot house right now, right? He's literally doing and living what he says, right? Now, the problem is they all have hundreds and thousands of employees who their job is to now sell that computer that Steve Jobs said, I just want to leave a dent in the universe. Okay, now we've got to fund that somehow, right? So it gets complicated because we have employees, we have marketers, we have
and that's a good transition, I think, to this conversation is how if an agency actually comes to their client and say, listen, this is how we want to engage the customer in a very ethical, very true relationship. Tell that to a CFO, he'd look at you like, what are you talking about? We just need to make money.
Right.
Or after 3 months of mediocre sales, that might be the case, because oftentimes these are long term. Like if you really want to do that and you really also want to make money, and that's why I say I think the double bottom line always has to align. Because
say that again.
Yeah.
I see a video and a product coming.
No. But because if they don't, it's not a business, right? It's either a charity or not. So I think they have to align, but the truth is when they align and when we believe that can create true great wealth and difference in the world in that business, it's a long-term thing. And unfortunately, a lot of businesses incentivize on short-term runways.
If money is your only thing, it won't.
But if I'm a CFO, I know I've got to. I can't say to the CEO or to the shareholders, in 10 years, we're going to make some money.
Yeah.
Because I know that I'm going to be fired before then.
Amazon did it, but nobody else can do it.
Well, Amazon did it. Yeah. And they,
we're never going to make
a very, very different way.
Yeah.
But for the most part, most of those people have a lifespan. They're like, I don't care about 10 years from now. I need to know this year and next year. And so now you get the human side of it. And like you said, all these different people on teams, it gets complicated. And ultimately, that seems to win out on, we can't wait 10 years. So we need to make some money now.
I think we should probably end this with the last few minutes talking about something, and maybe this can carry over into another episode, is I think what you're talking about takes building a culture inside an organization.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so you can have those thoughts, and we can talk about this till we're blue in the face, and we can say, this is my life mission, and I'm going to live this way. But until you create and fight for and do the hard work of building that type of culture inside an organization, it's not going to change for your agency or for your clients or anything else. And so when you do that and you do that, it might mean changing the way that you yourself interact with your staff. It might mean getting rid of certain and not taking certain type of clients. It might mean marketing yourself in a way or demonstrating. And then all of a sudden you begin to attract those clients that share the same, and then you begin to push those things out into the world. So I do think you have to address that too. It's a culture that didn't happen overnight, and we aren't sitting here talking about it because all of a sudden this is the latest and greatest. This is something that's been happening for a couple hundred years, right? It's like, how do we perfect selling our product? And even if you were to go to Morocco and go to the bazaar there, people are selling their goods and wares and their rugs, and they've got their own manipulation methods, right?
Yeah.
Like you go to some of these countries and they're like, here, look at hold it. And then you hold it, and then they're like, okay, here, give me money, right?
Yeah.
Like you touched it, it's yours, you have to buy it, right? Yeah. That's extreme, but it's a culture that was established. So I think that's something that we should probably talk about for a few minutes, and then maybe.
Yeah, and I mean there's a benefit to it. So personally, I think that all this, we're just as a marketing kind of advertising and even just sort of business community, it's leveling up, right? The customer's getting overwhelmed. That's why certain channels stop working. They start degrading results. That's why email stops, it gets less results out of it. That's why all these things happen, because it's always dialing up. And that's, that has to be dialed down collectively. And if it is, then all of it's more effective and it's better for everybody. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, it takes some leadership in that area to say, okay, look, let's be ethical about how we market stuff, and let's not destroy someone's, inbox for no reason. But it takes the entire group to do that. And I don't know if that's necessarily possible. But we do know everything's cyclical, so somehow it'll actually hash out and reset, and we're seeing that with obviously paid platforms like Facebook and those kind of things.
Yeah. And again, I think that's the key, is setting the culture both on the platforms but also in the marketing side. I mean, if you go back and if you watch, I know we refer to it a lot. We watched Don Draper in Mad Men. You see the evolution of the golden age of advertising, which was, like Brad said, is how can we manipulate the public to buy our product? Now, certainly there's needs and people will buy what they want. But the question is, I think we all have to ask ourselves is, are we truly engaging on a relational level and leaving that person better than what we found them? And that's kind of my mantra. But I think the question that you asked, Brad, I think you even said this, you didn't mention it on the podcast yet, was if this guy was trying to date my daughter and these were the tactics he was using, would I approve of that, or would I have a conversation with my daughter or even my son, whatever it may be,
I think Brad might be cleaning his gun as he comes to the door.
Would say, honey, this isn't probably not the best way to start a relationship, and here's some red flags that I'm seeing.
I think the same thing. Like if this guy started dating my daughter, and I actually went over to his apartment, and then I looked and I saw these sheets of paper with these like strategies of how he's going to woo and win over my daughter, like written down in ways he's going to take advantage of her pain points. I would be freaked out. You know what I'm saying? I'd be like, what? Anyways, just
it's true.
I don't know why I have these feelings and thoughts sometimes. I just this whole thing pinched me, and I think I'm just kind of like, maybe I'm just needing to, maybe it's something I need to wake up to a little bit more and try to focus on a little better. And so I think this is a good learning. I mean, I love talking about things in this platform, that we can talk about things honestly and openly, because I'm just as guilty as this. I'm not trying to say that this is something that I'm better than. I'm dealing with this internally. This is like a personal thing for me. And so as a marketer, I've been in marketing for 30 years, and and it just sometimes you got to rethink, and you got to challenge what you believe in and what you think about. And so again, I'm not trying to be a hater today. I'm just trying to be honest. So
yeah, I think those of us who are in digital marketing, especially,
trying to be my true self today.
Yeah. That's good. I think you always have to ask yourself that, and especially those of us who are in digital marketing, because the tools themselves, Marshall McLuhan said, the medium is the message. Yeah. And that's so true, because even the platforms have their own styles and ethics and mores. The way that you communicate on Twitter says something very different, and there's nuances in the way that you say it, is the way you say it on Facebook, as the way you do it on Instagram, as the way you do it on TikTok. And those are being manipulated and used for advertising and marketing in ways that, as we're learning now, actually harm people.
Oh, yeah.
Literally harm people.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good discussion. Any closing thoughts?
No, I mean, it is an area that needs to be changed. It's going to change one way or another. So.
Yeah, great discussion. I'm sure we'll continue this on other podcasts.
Yeah, and I
would
go
out there and be honest in your marketing.
Yeah, I would love to hear people's thoughts on that. Feel free to respond. Watch us on YouTube, post in the comments, and please stop what you're doing right now. And at the end of this, leave us a good review. It really helps with the algorithms.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
In a positive way.
Manipulate the algorithm. No,
all right, gentlemen.
Not at all.
Till next time.
Till next time.
See you.
Bye.